Hey, I'm Coach Katrina, a personal trainer and owner of the club. I have lost 100 pounds 2 times in my life and gained it back 3 times. And what I find works best for my body and my mind is to just find balance with food. So here's Kleanish Eats with Coach. Hey y'all, Coach Katrina here. Today I am cooking spaghetti squash. I'm making meatballs, and I've already made some homemade sauce, which I'm going to tell you how I made. So first, I'm going to do the meatballs. I just have 2 eggs. I'm going to whisk them together. Now, this recipe calls for 1 egg per pound of meat, and I have 2 pounds of meat here. I have lean ground pork and lean ground beef. You can just use one or the other, or you can even use like veal as well. It's completely up to you. Typically, my Nana used beef and pork, so that's what I'm going to use today. So eggs are in. I'm going to put half a cup of breadcrumbs. Now you can choose just like regular breadcrumbs. You can make your own breadcrumbs. I just have store-bought today. A 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. Again, like if you had fresh, that would be the best, but I just have store-bought, like regular grated the stuff. So I'm using that, and then the rest. So we're gonna put some salt. We're gonna put some ground black pepper. And I'm also gonna put onion powder and garlic powder. So some recipes also for meatballs like include using onions or using garlic like raw, but I prefer just to use the powder. And that looks like a lot, but it's only because the holes are really small in that one. This one, they're a bit bigger. So that was onion powder, this is garlic powder. And then the last thing is some dried parsley. And then that's gonna be pretty much it. Oh, it always comes out so slow. Basically, I'm just gonna whisk that together so it mixes. And then I'm going to be adding the meat in. Okay, so I'm just using a whisk, adding the egg and the dry ingredients together. Okay, now I can go ahead and add the meat in and roll them out. So pretty simple to make homemade meatballs. Now, of course, you can buy meatballs from a lot of places in this city, given the amount of Italian restaurant there are. As well, you can buy meatballs from the grocery store, like frozen, you know, whatever you prefer. A lot of the times I do just choose things that are already made. But I wanted to show that I do know how to make meatballs and that I do know how to make sauce, because I got a lot of flack in my last video when I used ragu from the store. So just trying to get my Italian card back today with this recipe. Although when I bring out the spaghetti squash, I'm sure that's going to offend some people too, but whatever. Okay, so there's really no other way to do this but to really get hands-on, so just make sure you have nice clean hands and then start mixing as so. Wow, this is so crazy. I haven't made meatballs since Nana passed away, and there's something like, I don't know, I know what to do, and it's because I did it with her so much, but I haven't done it in so long. So this is like really taking me back to her kitchen right now, which I miss a lot. I also remember her doing like this, so you saw I was kind of doing this, and then I remember she would kind of fold so that you can get the ingredients that are at the bottom, and then she'll go back in. Okay, so now that that's nice and evenly mixed, I can go ahead and roll them. Now, there's a few ways that you can cook meatballs. Like some people pan fry and then put them in the oven. Some people like sear them in a pan and then put them in their sauce to cook. Today, I'm just going to be straight up baking them because that's how I like them best. And instead of using just a flat sheet, I'm going to use a muffin tin because then it'll just help when I need to rotate them. It'll help that process. So I just took some olive oil and a paper towel and just rubbed olive oil so that they don't stick. And now I can go ahead and roll my meatballs. Now, some people make small ones, some people make big ones. It's really up to you, and then just making sure that obviously you cook them all the way through whatever size you do. And for this part, if you have a little bit of water, it'll just help them from sticking in your hands. Now this part, I honestly don't even know how to describe this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing and then do it. Again, something that's just kind of natural to me now after years of helping Nana. Okay, so that looks good. I'll plop it in my pan. And then I'm going to continue this process until this whole thing is filled. Okay, so that about 2 pounds of meat made 12 meatballs, and then I also had a little bit left over, so I just made a patty with it, and I'll eat that for breakfast or lunch sometime this week. So I'm gonna put the meatballs in the oven. The oven has been preheating at 400 degrees, and typically these will take, depending on the size, around 10 to 15 minutes. I'm assuming that since these are bigger ones, they're probably gonna take closer to around 15 minutes. In about 8 minutes or so, I'm gonna take a peek at them. I'll flip them and then let them cook. So in the meantime, I can show you how I'm gonna do my squash. So I obviously cut a spaghetti squash in half, and there are multiple ways to cook spaghetti squash. I've heard that the easiest is in the microwave. So I've eaten spaghetti squash before, but I've never cooked it myself. So I got a tip off from a friend on how to cook it in the microwave. So basically I have a dish here that's microwavable safe, and it has about 1/2 inch of water in it. So I'm just scooping out all the seeds, and then all I'm going to do is place this down in there, cook it in the microwave. Now if my microwave was bigger, I could have done both sides at once, but it's a bit of a smaller one, so I already have done one, and now just working on the second part. Okay, so I'm going to scoop this into the garbage. Okay, so now that that's all cleaned out, face down, nothing with it, into the microwave it goes for between 10 to 15 minutes, but the other side took 15 minutes, so I'm just going to put 15 minutes on the clock with this one and let it cook. So last night before I went to bed, I actually threw my sauce on to cook in a crock pot. So obviously the quicker process would to be just have it on the stove, but I just wanted to save myself a step today, so I threw everything in a crock pot. So in a pan, first I fried some white onion. So I used 1 whole white onion, a little bit of olive oil, gave that a little bit of color. Then I put it into the crock pot. Then on top of that, I put 2 cans of crushed tomatoes, 1 can of tomato juice, and 1 can of tomato paste. Then I also added some water because I actually don't really like a thick sauce. I like it to be a little bit more thin or runny. So if you like thick sauce, then I would say don't add the water, but I added about 2 cups and maybe even a little bit more of water to the crock pot. And then from there I just added spices. So I added salt and pepper, I added onion powder, garlic powder, parsley, oregano, and then I also added some chili flakes and some paprika. So it definitely is spicy sauce. So if you don't like spice, then just skip the paprika and the chili flakes. So I just threw that all in the crock pot on low. I went to bed around 12 o'clock and I woke up around 4:30 and I could really smell it. So I came down and I checked it. It was cooked and all good. So then I turned it just on the crock pot on to just warm, so to keep it warm until today. So of course the process is a bit different when you are cooking it in a pot. It would only really take just over an hour for it to be done. Some people cook their sauce all day. The most important thing is to just watch it and stir it to make sure that it's not burning. So just don't have it on a really high heat if you are going to be cooking it all day. Okay, so around the same time actually, the meatballs were done and then the squash was done because I put that in for 15 minutes. These also took 15 minutes. Like I said, halfway I turned them, so then they got like a little brown color, and I pulled them out and I just did cut one open to make sure that it was cooked, and it was, so those are good. Now with this, you would know if it was like needed to be longer if when you scooped it, it wasn't easily peeling as it is right now. So clearly this one is good to go. So that's really it. I'm going to scoop this out. I'm going to add some sauce, put a few meatballs in my bowl, and finish just with some Parmesan cheese. Yum, this looks so good. Sauce. Sauce. Cheese. And there we have it. Spaghetti squash, homemade sauce, homemade meatballs. Oh, that is so good. We gotta try the meatballs too. Oh yeah, nailed it. Enjoy this recipe if you cook it.